Please, could you let, so we can all see who you are. Welcome to. And I hope we shall be hearing from you in due course. May I also wish a warm welcome to all those present, including members of the public and the press. And before we begin, I need to go over the usual housekeeping rules. There are no fire drills planned for this evening, so if the fire alarm does sound, please leave the building in an orderly manner by the nearest exit and assemble in the Queen's Garden at the front of the building. Please do not re-enter the building until you are advised to do so. Please also switch your mobile phones either off or have them set to be silent. Also, welcome those join us in the public gallery here today. I would ask that they follow any guidance and instruction given by me or by the officers present. This council meeting is being recorded, and the recording will become available on the Borough Council's website. I would like to remind members that the standards of behaviour for this meeting are set out in the Council's standing orders, and they do apply. Given the importance of the debate tonight on our Council's budget setting, I would have wished to take some time to remind members of the rules and protocols regarding around speaking and actions during this meeting. No member should speak unless invited to do so by myself. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand high and keep it there until you've been acknowledged by officers and by myself. Please, should all members in the room use their microphones whenever they speak, as without them, anyone watching online will not be able to hear you. To use the microphones, please press the button at the front and centre when invited to speak and wait a moment for the light on your microphone to come on. Please remember to turn off your microphone once you have finished. Members, in the interest of managing the meeting, please do not approach anyone seated at the table for advice without first gaining agreement from myself. Should you wish to do so, please raise your hand high. Members, there are copies of the procedure for raising points during the meeting, which have been provided to the leaders and deputy leaders of political groups, alongside the meeting guidance and checklist. Additional copies will be available as and when needed. I would ask and require that members remain silent whilst others are speaking, and all members respect the authority of the chair. Could I also ask at the end of the meeting to make sure that you all take all your belongings with you and any litter, bottles and glasses with you. Thank you. We now come to agenda item 1, which is apologies. I have received apologies from Councillors Lewis, Councillor Stubbs and Councillor Burnett Faulkner. Do we have any further apologies? No? Yes, Tom, back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Simon Jones and Mandy Beresford from our side.
Thank you. In that case, we'll go on to item 2, which is declaration.
Hang on.
Sorry? Sorry, I didn't see you. Apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Moss and Councillor Lou and even Lawley should be attending later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So apologise for that. Okay, we move then to agenda item 2, which is declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest from any members or officers in relation to any item of business contained within the agenda this evening? No? Excellent. We then move on to agenda item 3, is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of January this year. You will find these minutes on pages 5 to 14 of your agenda. Can these minutes please be agreed? Yep, fine. Thank you very much. Agenda item 4 is the Mayor's announcements. My annual civic mass will take place on Sunday the 2nd of March at the Holy Trinity Catholic Church. If you have not yet responded but would like to attend, please could you let my secretary know as soon as possible. We will shortly also be sending out information for the COVID Day of Reflection in March. I hope that members will support this important anniversary. Just a reminder that tickets are now on sale for my charity ball and the 2025 Borough Heroes Award held together at Keel Hall, and I'm pleased to report these appear to be selling well. If you would like to attend, please do make sure you get your tickets already available from my secretary. Now we move on to item 5 of the agenda, which is the first substantive item of business on this evening's agenda, which is the revenue and capital budget strategies for 2025-2026. A copy of this report and the associated papers can be found on pages 15 to 153 of your agenda. Councillor Tagman, will you now please introduce this report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I'm pleased to move the recommendations in the budget papers tonight, A to P, as set out at Appendix A, which includes the fourth year running of a low council tax rise of 1.99%, which is below inflation and is just 7p extra a week for the vast majority of residents in the borough. This is yet again honours this Conservative group pledge that we made at the last borough elections in 2022 to keep council tax rises below 2%. Other bills, of course, are still rising, so this will help any bit that can help our residents, particularly those pensioners that have lost their winter fuel allowance just recently. We've done this while presenting a budget that is prudent and balanced, includes continual improvements of services to the public and council-led regeneration of the town centre, which is well underway. This is all despite a 4% cut in funding by this government, a cut by Rachel Reeves, a Labour cut, and that is on top of the hike in national insurance by this Labour government, which affects this council as a large employer in our town, meaning a cut, together with the 4% cut, £500,000. Mr Mayor, that £500,000 is a double whammy of Labour cuts imposed on Newcastle. In response, the council has embarked on a tried and tested budget setting process using our efficiency board, which involves cabinet members and service heads to secure the necessary savings this year. It has been achieved without frontline statutory services being cut by this council. So that means that street scene, parks maintenance are again protected, and the council's waste and recycling services, a recycling service that has now reached almost 50%, the second highest in Staffordshire, are of course protected. I mean, out of interest, given the sort of the high profile of councils and different councils in Staffordshire at the moment, it's interesting that Stoke City Council are bottom of the pile when it comes to recycling, with the lowest rate in the county. We are committed to continually driving the increase in recycling, and we'll be introducing recycling of flexible plastics and plastic film, the first council in Staffordshire to do so, and also we'll be pushing more and campaigning more for food waste recycling at the curbside. Separate food waste collections will be mandatory next year. We in Newcastle have been doing them since 2010. Where Newcastle Borough leads, others are following. Likewise, we have rolled out the Civics Pride initiative, which is now well underway, with events in Newcastle Town Centre and Kids Grove already taken place, and a programme across the borough over the next year, which members have been informed with and has gone out in a press release. Now, to support this community involvement, as part of the budget, we are launching a ward-based Civic Pride Fund for community groups and others to apply to help promote safetiness, cleanliness of our streets and parks and open spaces, and to support the work that is already going on by council and its partners. Our One Council programme continues to deliver savings and is ensuring that we have the right people in the key places and areas we need to deliver those high quality local services. And the One Council now is focused on delivering a green One Council, digital innovation as One Council, and also the commercial aspects of the council's operations through a commercial One Council. I'd like to thank officers of the council in the financial team, and also cabinet members for their work on the savings plans outlined in the budget, and also to members of our FAP scrutiny committee who have scrutinised the savings within the budget on 2 occasions. The budget before us this evening, Mr Mayor, also includes provision for another boost in the council reserves, forecast to be almost £6 million by the end of next year, further building on the sound base in which our plans in this budget rest upon. This is necessary given the effect on the local economy and national finances and uncertainty following Rachel Reeves' disastrous first budget. We still have significant sums earmarked for the legal action relating to Wallace Quarry to help fight the appeal against the EA's closure notice, and also progress the abatement notice action as well. Mr Mayor, the main thrust of this budget, though, is to invest in our priorities for our borough and its future. Over the next year, we have put another £250,000 into the Borough Growth Fund, which has been renamed the Civic Growth Fund, to support the priorities set out in 2.18. With this growth fund, and now in its 6th year, we will continue to invest in the borough's future. This allows us to focus on those important things that matter to our community and the things they've constantly said in budget consultations, and do again this year, that they want us to protect frontline services such as street cleaning and parks maintenance, improve recycling, regenerate our town centres, and create that sustainable environment. This budget continues to deliver on those people's priorities. I'm pleased to confirm that the maintenance fund, the repairs fund from last year, continues with 28k enabling a programme of council-owned footpaths, structures and playgrounds to be repaired across the borough. Mr Mayor, the budget proposes also a 3-year capital programme totalling investment of £94 million, which will help us to deliver our regeneration aspirations for our town. We're seeing visible regeneration in our town centre already taking place, stripping out of the former York Place, the new market improvements and the opening recently of Keele in town, which was funded by the town deal money. And the replacement Castle Car Park is now open, enabling ambitious redevelopment plans for the Midway now to begin. And of course, the Castle Park Car Park facilitates the rest of the long-awaited redevelopment on the Rycroft side. I think the capital programme before us tonight supports this once-in-a-generation opportunity to regenerate our town centre. So, Mr Mayor, I'm pleased to recommend this budget, both revenue and capital, that continues to take this borough forward while honouring our commitment to that low council tax. And it also shows, I believe, given the current climate, the benefit of local decisions taken by local councils closest to the population we serve, and we should save our borough. I ask members to support this budget.
Councillor Tagg. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to second the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd love to. If I can just say a few words first. This meeting is a culmination of the budget process which started before the 24-25 budget was set. And I must thank our excellent finance team for the work they have put into it. Despite the challenges relating to the cost of living crisis and economic uncertainty, the council has made good progress against the council plan objectives, with high level of service delivery being achieved overall. Due to robust budget monitoring, it is forecast the council will achieve a balanced outturn for 24-25. The council has seen a £271,000 cut in grants via the local government finance settlement, coupled with an extra £233,000 of national insurance to be found as a result of the government's failure to honour their commitment to reimburse councils for their increases to employers' national insurance rates. Despite these cuts, the 25-26 budget gap of £1.890 million has been filled via a vigorous efficiency board process, including challenge sessions for each of the portfolio managers, have agreed these efficiencies and additional levels of income as being both feasible and sustainable. A below inflation council tax rise of 1.99% per Band D property is once again proposed. Coming from a different angle from the leader, this amounts to 10 pence per week or less for 95% of households within the borough. The Civic Growth Fund provides investment into our core priorities. £100,000 will be used to continue the transformation of public access to council services and to further drive efficiency service. £100,000 will boost environment sustainability in the borough. £50,000 will continue to boost footfall in the town centre. It is pleasing to note that the council's levels of reserves remain relatively untouched and will indeed be boosted from 5.112 million to 5.978 million during 25-26. This will ensure the council's continued financial sustainability and increase its financial resilience further. The public consultation identified that regeneration of the towns, street cleansing and refuse collection are the services that residents value the most. All of these services have been protected or invested into via this budget. We continue to work to regenerate our town centres with projects involving the Future High Street Fund and town deals for Newcastle and Kidsgrove, gathering real pace and completion. This is a well-run council with low council tax and is run by local people who have the best interests of Newcastle at heart. This budget helps to make our area a better place for our residents, which is why we all came into local politics. I believe this is a robust, affordable and balanced budget for 25-26, and I'm happy and indeed honoured to support it. Happy to second it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Members, we now move to the debate on this item. Can I ask you to indicate by raising your hand high if you wish to speak? Okay, thank you. We'll start by hearing from Councillor Wheeldon.
I don't think I've seen a happier budget for a group of people living in a small town like ours. money is allocated quite seriously and carefully. My comment, quasi question is, with such careful use of our funds, is sufficient publicity as far as the Tory-led council's protection of residents and the low council tax increases compared with the leeching and bloodletting financially undertaken by the Labour government? Is it publicised enough so that people realise that we provide such a protective shield around the residents of Newcastle instead of the worst possible situations that could be applied for all residents of the Borough Council if we followed the line of the current Labour government?
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Have you finished? Mike? Thank you. Councillor Rees. Next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the leader confirm, is it the view of the administration that the proposed hotel on the Rycroft site is key to the economic development of the town? And can he clarify if the hotel is the only development for the middle section of the Rycroft, or are there other proposals, plans being considered in place of the hotel?
Thank you. Councillor Holland, next.
I think in answer to Councillor Wheeldon, if the politics of tonight aren't immediately apparent, I should make them so myself. Here we go. It's a pleasure to support the budget tonight and the associated strategies. Can I repeat the thanks I gave at the January meeting of the Finance, Assets and Performance Scrutiny Committee for officers for their hard work in preparing them. The administration deserves our thanks and our support for bringing forward a budget that limits tax rises for this authority's share of council tax, as Councillor Sweeney said, to 10 pence or less per week for the vast majority of households in our borough. Section 3.1 of the MTFS report confirms that had this budget been moved during the last days of the previous government, this 1.99% rise would have been an inflation matching rise. Because of the dire economic ineptitude of the current Labour government, this is, of course, a below inflation rise, meaning that in real terms, the excellent and award-winning services this council provides will be no more expensive next year than they were last year. As we can see from section 9.1 of the main report, uncertainty about the future of government funding for this authority is now one of the key risks for us going forward. Now, I said at the last meeting of full council that the government wishes to do us harm, and I stand by that judgment. We are not immediately due to be abolished, but all members will share disappointment that the government has cut core funding to this council by 4% this year. Yes, the Prime Minister, who promised before the election not a penny more on your council tax, has not just failed to help local authorities freeze council tax, but his government has actively cut hundreds of thousands of support from us. Thank goodness we do not live in one of the 6 Labour or Liberal Democrat-led council areas where MHCLG has sanctioned whopping tax rises above the referendum threshold. Bankrupt Birmingham, 7.5%. Labour Newham, 10%. Labour Bradford, 10%. Labour Trafford, 7.5%. Combined authorities and elected mayors don't seem to be helping residents in Trafford or in Birmingham, where basic services are being cut, even as more tax and more debt is piled onto ratepayers. Where, we must ask, is the case for local government reorganisation in all of that? Where is the evidence that super councils and metro mayors will help and not harm our residents? It's no surprise that Labour doesn't seem to have a budget amendment to move tonight. At budget scrutiny, the Labour seats were half empty. Now, I've been criticised for naming members in the past, so let me be clear, I'm referring to the group. Only 2 Labour members were supplied by that group for scrutiny of these proposals in January. Now, can I place on record my thanks to the administration for listening to committee members who did attend? When we first examined the draft MTFS funding strategy, there was a saving of £20,000 from the council tax support grant to parish councils. This appears tonight at Appendix 4 of the main report as a saving of just £8,000. That additional money that we asked for is being put into the service of the council's Civic Pride programme. It means that this money is now available to every area of the borough, including parished and non-parished areas, and there will be greater transparency for taxpayers about what schemes are being funded using that money. Mr. Mayor, this is a good budget. Our council is well run and financially stable. Our Conservative administration is meeting its commitment to keeping our taxes low and supporting the priorities that our communities tell us are important, as outlined at Appendix 14. Contrast this with the Labour government, a Prime Minister who breaks his promises, a Chancellor who cuts our funding, a Deputy Prime Minister who greenlights 10% tax rises on ratepayers, a Minister for Farming who says that farming is not high on Labour's pecking order of priorities, and a Health Minister who thinks it's funny to joke about vital local services like bin collections, and who makes sickening comments about hoping pensioners who vote against him should die before the next election. Labour treats with sneering contempt the people of this country, and in our borough, it's empty chairs and empty hands. I have no doubt that when Staffordshire voters go to the polls in May, Mr. Mayor, they will reject a Labour Party that has nothing to offer them. Long may Staffordshire prosper, and long live the loyal and ancient borough of Newcastle-under-Lyme.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. We shall next hear from Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions for me, please. On the sustainable public transport theme that's funded by the Town Deal Fund, I think it's 3.42 million has been allocated, but only £65,000 has been spent. If we could have an update on why that huge sum of money doesn't seem to be progressing at pace, just a general update. An observation and a question on the asset management strategy that's documented and appended to the report. Obviously, there's a large and diverse range of projects in it. Some have been cancelled, some have been completed, some have been amended since that was first published. And it doesn't appear too easy to read about updates, save for a paragraph at 17. And the request is, can that document be updated to take account of that to make it easy to follow? And the last question or point is just on council tax. A few points have been raised rather unhelpfully there, but council tax has increased 17% since 2018 when the Conservatives took administration of this council. Yet the head count at the council has been reduced at the same time by approximately 15%. Services are stretched, such as environmental health, revenue and benefits and waste. Council tax in this borough is one of the highest in the entire West Midlands region. And the question is, does the leader consider putting up council tax again at the same time as we've just heard, quote, boosting reserves? Is that considered fair on the borough residents? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fox-Hewitt. The next councillor is Councillor Paul Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I must apologise, I'm a bit hoarse tonight. When you look at the number of councils up and down the country in financial difficulties, I was shocked to find that the government's actually cut the funding to local councils, and it seems to be a cynical way of passing further taxation onto the public, where the government's putting the squeeze on the councils to force them to increase the council tax. I just wondered if either the leader or the deputy leader would be able to tell us the £504,000 cut from our funding, what is that as a percentage of the local government finance settlement? Thank you.
To Councillor Waring. Next one, Councillor Richards.
Hello. This is part of a comment on the assets report on page 146. In line with the Council's objective to manage services and assets in the most effective, economic and efficient manner, can I ask if the provision of car parking, in light of the recent opening of the new multi-storey car park, is going to be assessed again, particularly parking on King Street and Hassel Street, as these are assets that are to be sold off. With the building of the new multi-storey car park and the building of the Sky building, then the loss of these car parks might impact local businesses. Yeah, because basically residents, the public, if they can't park at one end of the Newcastle, then they are likely, if those car parks are closed, to be pushed into local streets, and therefore on-street parking will increase, because we know the public like to park closest to where they're going to shop. And this isn't a criticism of kind of parking on multi-storey. It is a long way for some people. So, for example, the King Street car park is next to the Borough Arms, and also I know that quite a large percentage of local employees park on that car park, particularly for Aspire. So is there going to be an assessment once the car park's been up and running of the people parking on these car parks?
Is that your only question, Councillor Richards?
That was my question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we next come to Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. Yes, I would also like, as well as my colleague, Councillor Holland, to thank the officers and the portfolio holder for once again bringing a good budget report to the council this evening. I would also like to, having read the report, I would also like to welcome the forecast rise in our reserves position. As the leader and the portfolio holder rightly say, it makes the council more sustainable in the future. So yes, once again, very good report, well documented, and I will be supporting this report this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Parker. We next hear from Councillor David Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to also put on record my thanks to the officers and the Cabinet member for preparation of the annual budget. I'm afraid to say, Mr. Mayor, that the Labour Group will not be supporting the budget tonight, which probably comes as no surprise. We have for a number of years expressed reservation with the budget put forward by the administration each year, in particular the annual 2% or 1.99% council tax rise that I'm still quite surprised that the leader felt that it would be of comfort to pensioners not receiving winter fuel allowance that their council tax would be going up. I'm not quite sure how he stretches to that being of any relief at all. But let's be clear, council tax in this authority is high. And that's partially due to this, as my colleague Councillor Fox-Hewitt said, this 17% increase that we've seen in council tax since the Conservatives took over administration of the council. When we were in administration of the council, we actually froze council tax for a number of years during a period of time when the country was going through significant austerity. And yes, whilst the funding settlement might be slightly less this year, that's nothing compared to the years of austerity that saw millions upon millions of pounds stripped away from Newcastle and put into the hands of civil servants. And that resulted in the very wonderful people of this borough needing to go cap in hand and beg government for funding for projects that later have become projects funded.
Councillor Jones, are you going to make a statement or ask a question?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I thought this was a debate on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Can I continue? So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've thrown me off. So I think that we also need to get a complete picture of what's happening. Councillor Holland mentioned a number of authorities that have been granted the ability to increase their council tax beyond threshold. Many of those authorities, because they have faced a equal pay claim, which was brought about. But he also left off a number of Conservative authorities, such as Windsor and Maidenhead, that sought to increase their council tax by 25%, only to be told by this government that that would be capped at 9%, and Hampshire County Council, who have increased their council tax by 14.99%. So I think we are seeing this not just limited to councils of one political control or two political control, as Councillor Holland mentioned, but also across Conservative councils as well. The reality is, and I am the first to say this, the reality is that local government does need to be better funded. And should the administration wish to bring forward a motion to government to state that, we would be likely to accept that. Local government funding, after years of austerity, Mr. Mayor, I'm being interrupted by a member of the administration party. I think I'm allowed to make a speech. That's what this is.
You don't like?
Oh, she doesn't like it. She's not been here long, so she probably doesn't understand how it works.
Just like to remind you, I certainly never heard interruption, and I don't know who was supposed to have made it.
So sorry, Mr. Mayor, I will wrap up. But just to wrap up on this, actually, the travesty is that we need to have a very frank and open conversation about local government funding, and in particular about how we recover from the huge financial deficit from the centre that we saw during the many years of austerity under the previous government. I'm here to work hand in hand to say that we should go to government and make this case. But we can only do this case if we work together. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Jones. Next, Councillor Hutchison.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reports before us tonight show we are a successful and sustainable borough. We are an environmentally sustainable borough that looks after and protects our green spaces for current and future generations. Following on from the success of the One Council programme, we now have the One Green Council work stream, which will focus on the sustainable environment strategy to achieve the Borough Council's net zero target by 2030. We are already 68.37% of the way there due to making responsible and appropriate decisions at the appropriate time. In the budget consultation report, residents were asked which of these council services are most important to you. Streets cleaning was 60% scored and the refuge collection was 56%. So street scene and recycling and waste services are protected in this budget, and rightly so. Our recycling and waste service will be introducing a separate recycling and food waste collection service to businesses in the borough from April 25, commencing with our existing trade customers. The service will mirror that provided successfully to householders and is fully compliant with the government's simpler recycling requirements for England. Since the establishment of the Civic Growth Fund, investments have been made and commitments to many areas, including 139,000 for tree planting and carbon capture. This is a truly green budget, and I will be supporting it this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hutchison, I'd just like to remind members that there is a rule about a 5-minute time limit on speaking. Councillor John Williams next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just echo what Councillor Jones points about the austerity. 14 years of austerity that put bills onto the residents of this country and this particular borough. Absolutely appalling. And now we hear some of the crowing how marvellous we are from the opposition. The question is about York Place and Midway Car Park. It's in the paperwork. The question really, do we own it? Do we still own York Place? Do we still own Midway? And if so, will we have a say in the design of the building before it goes to planning? So residents be able to look at the designs to see if they approve it, and also councillors, because it's so important, especially York Place. It's right in the centre of the conservation area. And it needs to be a really good design and quality materials used. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hodgkinson. Councillor Adcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to agree with the points made by my colleagues behind me about welcoming this budget. I think we can be incredibly proud that despite all we've been through in terms of inflation, energy crisis, we've had our funding cut by the new government, where we've had tax rises, that we're still following our pledge to keep tax rises below 2%. It's, you know, we hear members opposite talking about austerity. Which party's in power now, which is the one that's cutting our core funding? It's the Labour Party. We've heard about council tax rises since 2018. You have to, is that figure inflation adjusted? You think of what we've gone through as a country in the last few years. We have to think about how at this council we can be very proud that despite all the ups and downs of the economy and inflation and so on, we have kept to our pledge when it would have been easy for an administration to say circumstances have changed, we're going to change our minds. We have kept to our pledge we made to our residents in 2022 to keep our taxes below 2%, and we are sticking to it, and we're actually growing our reserves. I do want to make one specific thing I want to welcome in the budget, which is that the Civic Pride Fund I was really pleased to read about. I think it's going to be a really good initiative to support local groups. I can already think of some in my ward. I'm sure other members feel the same. That could really use that funding at a grassroots level to improve the area in which they live, and crucially, you know, celebrate our borough at this crucial time. So I really welcome that, and I welcome this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adcock. We have any more speakers? Councillor Adjutant Plunkett.
Thank you, and I'd just like to come in basically off the back end of what Councillor Foxhewitt said, especially regarding the projects and the money currently spent in regards to what was actually allocated for the projects. So, sort of putting it in perspective, last time I checked, nothing had been spent out the 2.9 million allocated for Cross Street, Chesterton. Putting the heart into Village Nutton, we're at 800k at 3.5 million. You know, you look at Kidsgrove Shared Services Hub, 164k out of 6.1 million. So when will these projects start to see the money that was actually allocated?
Thank you, Councillor Plunkett. Next, Councillor Heason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to say thanks. It's a comment, really. I'd like to say thanks to the administration for working and officers for working to produce a sound budget. And I'm pleased to say that the neighbourhood delivery team, which falls within my portfolio, continues to work in partnership with police and colleagues and other partners to coordinate activities and interventions which ensure efficient value for money, joint working. The neighbourhood delivery teams are multi-skilled to work across a range of enforcement activity, including community safety and issuing fixed penalty notices in relation to breaches of the public space protection orders. I will be supporting this budget because I think these services need to continue, and we're able to do that within this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Heason. Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things that I did bring up in the finance one in December. Question I did ask, and obviously the Civic Pride has actually replaced this, is obviously the preset money for the actual parish councils and town councils. At the time, I believe we were going to be kind of bidding, or there may be a process, and obviously that's now changed. Now, looking at that, I know that Kidsgrove, which I'm part of, and Audley will be affected quite badly financially. But also we do have small parishes that will have actually lived on this probably small money. Will the administration be helping those out financially? I'd also ask as well on community centres as well, and conditions on the asset management. There's a lot that do need some refurbishment, and where that will be coming from, because we're only talking of myself, you know, in need of financial and actual assistance, basically, just for condition. And that's it. The only other thing that was mentioned by Councillor Stubbs, who's not here today, unfortunately, and I know he directed this through obviously Councillor Holland as the chair, is obviously the interest that comes off the savings from the high street money. How are we going to replace that when all these actual projects are actually ongoing, and obviously that interest is no longer available? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grocott. Councillor Skelding.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. I'll keep this short and sweet because I don't have to go home and explain to my wife how the Labour Party kept me out all hours like they did in the last council meeting. Right, I'd like to welcome and give my full support to this excellent budget, a budget that not only limits tax rises but invests in the growth of our borough as we face the uncertain future of our 852-year-old borough. It's also a budget that's dedicated to support and maintain the excellence of our services, which in a not-so-distant future can only suffer from the pending takeover of our council. And I will stress this is a takeover of our council. It's not a devolution bill. It's not a merger. It's a hostile takeover bill, one which the opposite side of the chamber are too happy to support. So I will be supporting this budget this evening, and I welcome this and thank all of the officers that have worked on this. I know the amount of hard work and dedication that everyone's put into this, and I'll give it my full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skelding. Councillor Fear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's not often I disagree with my colleague, Councillor Holland, but I do want to disagree with him quite strongly this evening. The Labour Party have a lot to offer Staffordshire. Their grotesque financial mismanagement by Rachel from Customer Services springs to mind immediately. Swinging tax cuts on those who are actually economically prudent, where we see at the other end of our county, or the very edge of our county, the reward of profligacy in the disaster zone of places like Birmingham. We can also see, of course, the destruction of local democracy, something which, in a grotesque act of sycophancy at our last full council meeting, the group opposite seemed to be very, very keen on for whatever reason. Perhaps that's why they've got no alternative budget for us this evening, because they don't actually believe the borough should exist at all. So we really do have a problem there, don't we? But here, mercifully, we have a small bright light. We promised that we would keep council tax low. We have done precisely that. We have said we'd listen to local people and focus our prudential spending on the areas that local people thought was important. And we have done precisely that. I don't know how many of my colleagues over here are amused by the comments the Labour Party have been making about local matters this evening. I wonder in this new mega council, which they're so happy to embrace, whether any of the bureaucrats there would care remotely about the small areas of Newcastle that they seem now to have rediscovered, having decided that there shouldn't be a council here in the first place. There is a clear choice that we have in Staffordshire. It's one about empowering local people. It's about not taxing people. It's about prudential spending of other people's money against the destruction of democracy, extravagance, punishing people who do the right thing by local people, and brutally put, simply ignoring local people. This is a good budget. We should all support it this evening, but it actually is a signal of something else. It's a signal about public decency, and if you believe that we should have decent local government, you should be supporting this budget.
Councillor Fear, are there any other speakers? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, please.
Rightly so. The administration have been criticising cuts to local authorities by the current government, but they weren't as vocal when their own government cut local spending by 70% during their 14 years in power.
Are we any more? In that case, Councillor Simon Tagg, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for all of the comments. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can in the space of time we've got. But I think on the first speaker, which was a long time ago now, but Councillor Wheeldon, you're quite right on communications about this, and I'm sure that people on this side are sharpening their pencils, ready for leaflets and elections, because we do have elections in this county, because this county is resisting at the moment, moving in a fast way towards any reorganisation. So our elections are going ahead. That's not happening in a lot of areas. Councillor Richards, the point, Rees, sorry, the point about I think it was the Rycroft site. There will be hopefully, as well as an apartment scheme there, also an apart hotel which is a different sort of take on a hotel, not a 100-bed hotel that was originally envisaged a couple of years ago. And also there's some Aspire homes going on there as well, and also McCarthy Stone are building their retirement area on the 55 plus isn't retirement, is it? But they're building their development on there as well. I think Councillor Fox-Hewitt and Councillor Jones handle those together. The issue to do, first of all, the first issues Councillor Fox-Hewitt raised about the transport and sustainable transport plan. I think the main bulk of that will be the cycling route through the town. That hasn't been timetabled for delivery yet. So once that is, the money will start to be spent via the county council's team who are doing the finishing off the cycling route into town this way and making sure it connects in the middle. So that will be the next bit of that. I agree with him actually, very rarely, on the asset management strategy, and I think I will be asking officers to look and update that further. I see some dates relating to 2023, etc. in there. That needs to be updated, and obviously I'll ask Sam McKenny to do that when he's back with us. And I think on this issue to do with council tax, I mean, it's been quoted 17% rise since we've been in power here at the borough. And then they talk about the Labour record when they were last in power. Of course, those 0% were part of a Conservative government's policy by the then Chancellor George Osborne to freeze council tax. The first year of that was in the last year of the Conservative administration, and then it went on there for a number of years. But I'll look back to when Labour had control of this council pre-then, and let's just go back to the turn of the century, and let's go up to 2006 when Labour finally lost control of this council after 30-odd years. And just in that period, there was a 36.96% increase in council tax, not 17%, 36%, almost 37%. And that was a time when the economy was booming, when we had the Blair and the Brown boom before the bust. And that's when we should have been mending the roof, but we weren't. Remember that old saying at the time from 2010? They weren't mending the roof when the sun was shining. So I think we won't take any lessons from the Labour group on council tax at this council. Also, I think it's really, really important to say when it comes to this, that obviously we are committed to keeping the council tax as low as possible, and we committed to 1.99% in our 2022 manifesto, and we have delivered that. Councillor Richards, I think you're quite right, and this will be happening, a review as the car park gets bedded in. I think you're quite right on that, and that will happen, and that will come to the review of that will not only come to cabinet members, but come to scrutiny. Hopefully the Economic Development Scrutiny Committee will make sure that happens. Councillor Waring, you're quite right about to ask for a percentage increase on the cuts overall, and I believe that is 8.2% reduction was the answer to your question. Labour cuts to this authority, which are shameful, really, after all they said in the election campaign, as Councillor Holland has talked about. Councillor Williams and Councillor Plunkett, we do have scrutiny reports that update every scrutiny meeting on the regeneration and the proposals. You can go back and refer to those if you like, but also if you'd like to speak for more detail from the officer concerned, obviously Simon Mack, I'm sure when he's back, will want to be able to update you on those. And of course, the next meeting of scrutiny will have a further update on our plans. And then Councillor Grocott, yes, the Civic Pride Fund. I would just point out that parishes can apply to that fund. There is 500, as we do, it's 500 per member. So 3-seat wards have 1,500 and 2 seats 1,000, 1 seat 500. And that, it is open for parish councils to apply to that. The previous funding source was not relevant within the existing legislation, I believe. So that was no longer appropriate. But we have made sure that we've spread that money around the borough via the Civic Pride Fund so that everybody can get the benefit of that across our great, loyal and ancient borough. So as I said earlier, Mr Mayor, I move the recommendations. I think this is a good budget. I think it's a budget that shows what we can do in Newcastle, keep council tax low, improve services and carry out that once in a generation regeneration that the people of this borough want to see. Thankfully, kicked off on the back of government levelling up funding from the previous government, the Conservative government, that £55 million both for Newcastle and Kidsgrove. And in Kidsgrove, it's led to Kidsgrove Sports Centre being reopened. The pump track, let's not forget about that. Let's also see the Clough Hall improvements. I know there's been issues there with the obvious result of the weather, but the improvements there. More to come with the shared hub, and hopefully also the station improvements there. And that's mirrored also here in the town centre, which we talked about. Also in Nutton Village with the regeneration that's taking place there. And I think also, Councillor Eddington, I'm sure Simon Kenny could give you an update on the Cross Street issue as well, which of course that is in the Town Deal Board, and he'll give you a fuller update on how the funding and how the project is going there. So, Mr Mayor, I ask all members to support this budget, and I think we'll be having a named vote, won't we?
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, that concludes the debate on the proposal. I will now put the matter to the vote, which must be a named vote. The monitor will now take and record the vote.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Adcock.
For.
Councillor Allport.
Abstain.
Councillor Lillian Barker. Councillor Beeston.
For.
Councillor Betley Smith.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Jacqueline Brown.
Abstain.
Councillor Bryan.
For.
Councillor Casey Hume.
Abstain.
Councillor Crisp.
For.
For.
Councillor Diamond.
Abstain.
Councillor Edgington Plunkett.
Abstain.
Councillor Fear.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Fox Hewitt. Councillor Gorton.
Abstain.
Councillor Grocott.
Abstain.
Councillor Easom.
For.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Hutchinson.
For.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Dave Jones.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Northcott.
A resounding for.
Councillor Barry Panther.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Rees.
Abstain.
Councillor Richards.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Skelding.
Unreservedly for.
Thank you. Councillor. Councillor Sweeney.
For.
Councillor John Tagg. Councillor Simon Tagg. Councillor Jill Waring. Councillor Paul Waring.
For.
Councillor John Wheeldon.
Or exclamation mark.
One word response will do, but thank you. I appreciate your emphasis. Councillor Whitmore.
For double exclamation mark.
I shouldn't have said anything, should I? Councillor Wilkes. Councillor
Simple for.
Appreciate it, Councillor. Councillor Jill Williams.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor John Williams.
Abstain.
Councillor Ruth Wright.
Abstain.
Fourteen abstentions. 23 in favour. Yeah. Shall I announce? Yeah. Thank you. The result of the vote is 23 in favour and 14 abstentions. Thank you.
Members, the motion is now carried. We now move on to agenda item 6, which is the pay policy statement. A copy of this report and the associated papers can be found on pages 155 to 164 of your agenda. Councillor Simon Tack, will you now please introduce this report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to move this. Comes to us every year, part of the Local Government Act 2011, on obviously the publishing of the pay policy statement. No changes from last year, other than obviously the increases through the wage structure that happened. So I've nothing further to add at this stage, but to move the recommendation. Thank you.
So Sweeney, do you like a second?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second that. Thank you.
Members, we now move to the debate on this item. Can I ask you to indicate by raising the hand if you do wish to speak? Speakers. In that case, oh, sorry. It's automatically carried then, isn't it? Yep.
We need to take a vote.
Well, we need to vote on it anyway. As there's no speakers, can we have those in favour show you in the usual manner? Are there anybody against? Well, I think that's wholeheartedly carried. Thank you. We now move to agenda item 7, which is a changes to committee membership. A copy of this report can be found on pages 165 to 168 of your agenda. Councillor Simon Tack, will you now please introduce the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, obviously, echo what you said earlier, welcoming Councillor Casey Hume to the council. Congratulations on a victory. May she enjoy her time on the council. May it, obviously, from a point of view of council existence, be long. Obviously, that affects the makeup of the council. Obviously, made some changes following the resignation of Wendy Brocky. That has then obviously now been reversed. So we've removed our member from the FAPS committee. I think we just need a nomination from Labour and the changes they wish to make. So happy to support those when they come forward.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Simon Tack. Councillor Sweeney.
Happy to second that, Mr. Mayor, and support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Members, we now move to the debate on this item. Any members that wish to speak, will you please join your hands high so it can be noted? Councillor David Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to formally nominate Councillor Grocott to take up the place on the Finance Scrutiny Committee.
Councillor Jones.
Anyone else?
The motion has been recommended and moved and seconded. Shall now move to the vote on this matter. All those in favour, please raise your hands in the usual manner. Oh, is there anyone against? That's well and truly carried. Thank you. We move on to agenda item 8, which I'm advised has been withdrawn. We now move to agenda item 9, where I have received 4 questions for the leader and the cabinet members. These can be found on pages 173 of your agenda pack. Will also be shown on the screens. I will ask the leader or the relevant cabinet member to respond to the question as shown, after which I will ask the member who submitted the question if they have a supplementary question. Could I remind members that if they have a supplementary question, it must be a question, not a statement, and it must be concise, focused and relate to the subject matter of the initial question and answer. The first question is from Councillor Rupert Adcock regarding local government reorganisation and is on the screen. Shortly.
Mr. Mayor, is it possible that they could be read out? Because members, including myself, with poor eyesight, and I think it's only right that they should be read out and there will be greater understanding.
Sure, I do not have poor eyesight. I've just recently been to the opticians, but if you want, that can be done if Councillor Adcock will oblige.
Happy to do so, Mr. Mayor. The petition at www.saveourborough.uk has reached over 2,100 signatures in a little over a week. Can the leader update the council on the Labour's forced local government reorganisation plans that could mean a takeover of Newcastle Borough by the city of Stoke-on-Trent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and thank you for the question, Councillor Adcock. I think, yes, you just pointed out the amount of people that signed the online petition. I will confirm that there are paper petitions now being circulated across the borough, so they've been out for a few days. Don't know how many people have signed those yet, but I think it will be an increasing petition as more and more people find out about obviously what the government is proposing. I think since we met a couple of weeks ago, we have received a letter from the Minister, Jim McMahon, that went to all of the authorities within Staffordshire, including the Borough Council, setting out a criteria and also a request by the 21st of March to have a series of A2H. Actually, the first one is to identify any barriers or challenges where further clarity or support will be helpful. We'll certainly be getting back with asking some of those questions. But I think what we need to do is obviously speak, as we said at the last meeting, I have done this and I will continue to do this with our colleagues across the county, whether that be the city, the districts or the county council, to see if there is a united approach to this going forward. I think also I will be contacting our local MP again. Now we have this letter as well to ensure that he is fighting Newcastle's corner as well, our Royal and Ancient Borough. And I think it's really important that we just look what's going on and some of the comments that are being made, Councillor Adcock, across the country. The Local Government Association chair of said the government needs to commit to funding councils up front to deliver on these local government reorganisation reforms. Areas that have gone through this already relied heavily on reserves to utilise, and some estimates say a one-off cost of between 25 and to £100 million to carry out this reorganisation. I thought it was supposed to save money. Oh, and didn't we have a discussion earlier under the budget, Councillor Adcock, about the reserves? And didn't we hear some of the Labour members saying, why have we got the reserves? Well, this is the sort of thing that can come out of the blue, as well as COVID pandemics and Wally's quarries, while you need to have your reserves. So this is not a money-saving exercise, quite clearly. Also, another thing that I've seen is concern raised by council mergers could lead to tax rises. Residence areas near struggling councils in England, we are near a struggling council, aren't we, which is the city of Stoke-on-Trent, could face council tax rises and reduce services under Labour's proposed devolution revolution. Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, is advocating the merger of numerous small and district and county councils to enhance efficiency. However, some of those councils are grappling with significant financial issues, and obviously the worry is that that will be passed on to the smaller councils and that are currently, providing good services like we are, and be dragged down. Levelling up is out of the window, and it looks as if dragging down is on the agenda. So I've got real concerns about that. So what I would say is, on a timetable for this, I'm working closely with our Chief Executive and obviously the other leaders, and we will be coming back with a timetable on how we're going to obviously revert back to members, and in the end it will be a full council decision that we will have to ensure we have, which will require a special meeting. I will be ensuring that goes out to members as soon as possible so we can get it in the diaries as well. Thank you, Councillor Adcock.
Councillor Tack. Councillor Adcock, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank the leader for his response. Just wonder if the leader would agree with me that, given that we've heard from some councils about councils tonight, the larger councils, the bigger geographical unitary ones, and the larger metropolitan ones, especially ones which have the cost of running a mayor's office, being in real financial difficulty, and we look at the performance of our council and other smaller councils, including small unitaries like Rutland, would the leader agree with me that bigger isn't always better?
Councillor Tack, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I certainly do, and I think our role really, until we do get it will be a diktat from the government in the end, is to keep pointing that out I think we continue to keep pointing that out. I think I would read from the MJ magazine, which is the well-respected, obviously, local government journal, had an article in from Dennis Reed, chairman of the Local Government Information Unit, and a couple of other people as well that are involved. It says the biggest irony of the whole sorry business, that is local government reorganisation at the moment, is despite claims to be a devolution paper, what we have is a centralising agenda, dividing local government into deliverable units manageable by civil servants with a veneer of local democracy through elected mayors. Centralisation has long been the agenda of the Treasury and other government departments. And finally, we now have a government that is buying into this spurious grounds, on the spurious grounds of growth and efficiency. Well, I've just said in my previous statement, it's going to cost hundreds of millions of pounds to do this across the country. So no efficiencies there. While being blind and deaf to the consequences. If carried through, it will be the death knell of local democracy as we know it and further marginalise people in their communities. A magic population number of local government is a fallacy and our councils are being destroyed because of it. That's not me saying it. That's not Simon Tagg trying to look after his job, as people were saying last week at the last meeting. This is local government professionals. A wrecking ball has been taken to local government.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. The next question is from Councillor Bentley Smith regarding Wallis Quarry and is also on the screen, or should be. If you would please, sir.
Is it not working?
No.
Is this work? Yeah, fine. Would the leader share my delight and satisfaction that Wallis Quarry Limited were not successful in their injunction against the Environment Agency's closure notice and that residents have been saved from further waste being deposited pending Wallis Quarry Limited's appeal against the closure notice?
Councillor Bentley Smith. Councillor Simon Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I share the obviously delight in that. I think obviously it's pleasing to see that judgment by the judge, and I think what we now await is that appeal process to the closure notice, and I think that should happen as soon as possible because I think people are waiting for that now. And of course, I did write to Steve Reed, the Secretary of State, to ask him to use his powers, to bring that forward and to call it in earlier. I still haven't received a response to that to date. So if anybody on the opposition side has got any links into government, please could you chase that up, because I think our population want to see this resolved one way or another, and hopefully that resolve will be the permanent closure of the site, followed by that capping off, full capping off, permanent capping off, which will then lead to the restoration, which will then lead to the management of the odours on that site as a closed site, which I'm sure will relieve the odour situation, the awful gas odour situations we've had over Christmas and into the new year. I had a brief lull now, but we are back again with it. I notice, the smell is up, the odours are up, the gas odours are up again, and we need this appeal to take place as soon as possible.
That's a Councillor Tagg. Councillor Bentley Smith, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. In thanking the leader and also our officers for what they've done to secure this success, will the leader stress the importance of residents and others continuing to report the continued and continuing problems with Wallis Quarry to the Environment Agency and to the Borough? I say this because although the landfill has ceased and capping is supposedly underway, noxious odours and toxic gases are as bad as ever. Stating the obvious, it seems the site is still being mismanaged, given noxious odours and toxic gases are being generated, are rising to the surface, are still being discharged, and are still not being captured. Would the leader agree that the cause needs to be investigated by the Environment Agency and a prescription for remedy issued as a matter of urgency?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brittany Smith. Councillor Simon Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd agree with Councillor Bentley Smith on that. And I know that the EA have, well as the closure notice, they requested series of works to be done by the 31st of January, and I'm sure they are looking into those, and we've had assurances that they are making sure that they have been done properly, and we'll hear more from them on that. It's not for us to pass judgment on those, but I think I agree entirely with his comments, and I think what the people of this borough want is a resolution to this, and this site being managed through to restoration correctly, and that closure notice will hopefully help us to do that, and we need that progressed as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. The next question is from Councillor Edgington Plunkett regarding Castle Car Park and is also on the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following the opening of the new car park, can the portfolio holder update the council if there's been any technical issues since the opening, and what measures were put into place to ensure the car park is disability friendly?
Councillor Sweeney, I think this is yours.
It is, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I find it a little disappointing, really, that Councillor Edgington Plunkett doesn't actually sort of welcome the car park or say something good about it rather than this. But nonetheless, it's the Labour Party and it's politics, I suppose. I'll say it instead. I think it's great to see Castle Car Park open and thriving. It's a major improvement on the Midway experience. Is anyone going to disagree with that? To now have a clean, secure, airy town centre car park, which is what we said it was going to be like all the way along. As with a new facility, there have been some minor issues. The ticket control system in Castle Car Park, for a small proportion of drivers, has had some issues regarding car registrations and taking the appropriate payment. Some of this has been people basically not understand the system, and some has been technical. These issues are now being worked through with the supplier. The number of instances is now reduced to a very small number, and the call button link to the CCT centre is in operation to help customers. The council has invested in temporary on-site security to ensure that drivers have assistance on hand if needed. And I went on the first Saturday it was open, and the three guys there couldn't have been more helpful. Since opening, the installation of the electric charging points has been completed, and these continue to operate effectively. The final aspect to be launched is a cycle parking with the access control system nearing completion. Nearing completion, it'll be sort of today or tomorrow. It really is that near. Castle Car Park includes the provision of 22 disabled spaces and 3 electric vehicle disabled spaces, giving a total of 25, all of which have the recommended space surrounding them. The building is compliant in terms of building regulations and meets the expected number of spaces and location in terms of being accessible to the entrance exit. The council will continue to monitor demand and could in the future provide more disabled spaces if required. Now, before I finish, one other thing I'd like to say is I've always said before, and I'll say it again many times, this council doesn't use parking as some sort of cash cow. So you read the Daily Mail, oh, council's this, council's that, council's that. We don't do this. We never have done. I looked back through the records of cabinet meetings, and in 2011, our main car park, which at the time was the Midway, for an hour, you paid £1.10p for an hour, as in 2011. In 2025, in the new car park, you pay £1.20 an hour. Now, I don't think that's bad. I really don't. And the idea that councils just rip people off on parking because the Daily Mail says so, so it must be true. It isn't. We certainly don't. Thank you.
Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Edgington Plunkett, do you have a supplementary?
I certainly do. Can the Cabinet tell us their future plans to ensure we still have enough disabled parking around the town centre over the next few years? And can the equality impact assessment as part of the parking strategy be shared with me at the conclusion of this meeting?
Plunkett. Councillor Sweeney.
It can't be shared at this meeting because I haven't got it on me. But however, yeah, we have done no changes to disabled parking across the borough, apart from the Midway is not open and Castle Car Park. If people still pay on the Midway, they say we haven't changed anything. So yeah, I can assure you of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. The next question is from Councillor Edgington Plunkett and regarding the J2 and is on the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the leader provide the council with a general update on how Jubilee 2 is performing and if the membership numbers and bookings are still strong?
Scolding.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Edgington-Plunkett. Jubilee continues to perform well in a competitive marketplace, and it's a marketplace where customers have a choice of health and fitness providers basically on every street corner. And alongside facing difficult decisions where to spend their disposable income due to the continued cost of living crisis, the buoyancy remains good of membership in the Jubilee 2. I mean, the current members showing are 4,083 at the end of January this year, which compares to 3,699 in January of last year. So that's a growth in a saturated and extremely competitive market of over 10% within 12 months. Swimming lessons are performing well, with 973 young people enrolled on the swimming programme between October of 24 and January 25. All customers were also moved on to direct debit payments as opposed to the recurring payment cycle that cycled every 12 weeks. One of the big jewels of the crown of the Jubilee Centre, in my opinion, is the Active Life referral programme. This was introduced in May of 2025, and it's demonstrated some great health outcomes for residents. I'll state some percentages for you. 61.29% of the participants have seen a reduction in their systolic blood pressure. 65.11% have seen a reduction in their diastolic blood pressure. 59.29% have seen reductions in their body mass index, and a staggering 86.21% of the participants have seen a reduction in their body fat percentages. Thank you for that one. I did overhear that. Hang on, sorry, can I continue?
Sorry, I thought you...
I believe they're looking into a class of that, so if you'd like to join up, your support for the membership without the growth as well. So following those statistics, here's a few more, because I know how you all love stats at this time of night. 67.38% of customers have seen an improvement in mental health. 78.78% believe their overall health has improved. Now, this is all from the referral programme. We've got 470 referrals up to current date, and 60% of these are converting into full membership, helping the membership growth as well. Now, at the end of the period 10, January 2025, the big figure that we're looking for here is the income. The income has increased by 20.1%. Now, that's a staggering 278,375 when compared to the last financial year. So I think these are great figures and show that we're dedicated to improving not only the physical health of our residents, but also the mental well-being. I hope this satisfies the councillor's question.
Councillor Skelding. Councillor Edgington-Plunkett, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, it is just a quick one, and that's in regards to, has there had to be any works done to Jubilee since our last update to the full council?
There's been no works currently undertaken, but there is a plan. There is some funding that's becoming available, hopefully, through Sport England, that will work in line with the net zero targets for biodiversity and net zero targets. And I can update you on that as and when and if this comes to fruition.
Thank you, Councillor Skelding. Members, we now turn to agenda item 10 on our agenda, which is from petitions from members. I have not been made aware of any had to be handed in this evening. Agenda items 11 and 12 relate to urgent business and confidential business. I have no urgent or confidential business that needs to be considered this evening. Therefore, this concludes the business for this meeting, and at 8:20 p.m. I declare this rather peaceful meeting to be closed. Thank you.